So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. What we want to do in this final session, just till 4:15, it's not to force any consensus or whatever, but the staff of JSS have drawn up just a few keynote points here. I'm going to scroll through them for 4 or 5 minutes. Just if you could read those, they can prompt your own reflections. And then we'll move into just general discussion, points that you would like to make in answer to the question. And then at the end of the proceedings at 4:15, we invite you to leave your pieces of paper in the box and then join us for a drink. And then, if you want to, you can email further material to us to assist with the publication. So does that seem clear in terms of process? So let's just spend a few minutes in silence as we just ourselves read through these points that have been listed by the staff in relation to the discussions last night and today. So we'll just leave that scrolling in the background now, but you don't have to speak to that, but your own answer to the question, what does a humane and effective justice system look like? And we'll have 2 roving mics, and let's try and get as much feedback as we possibly can. Yes, to begin. And please identify yourself each time.
Mick O'Brien. I first went into a correctional institution when I was 14, which is 54 years ago, and I've been in and out of them ever since and involved in the criminal justice system. I just want to make a comment about transition and post-release. One of the things that I've found, having been involved with the YCW in St Vincent de Paul as a prison visitor, and then through my work with the Public Solicitor's Office and Legal Aid, and doing more than just helping people with their legal things, like if, for example, one of our clients got probation, I didn't think my lawyer had done his or her job until he'd also organised accommodation and some support for that person. But I've found over all those years that even though you establish very good relationships with prisoners, it's been my experience that on their release, the ones who then didn't want to know you and didn't encourage any contact were the ones who didn't come back. The ones who maintained contact, by and large, reoffended. So I guess by and large a lot of those people who didn't want to have contact maybe had supports, I don't know, but that was my impression, and it's an impression shared by a number of other prison visitors that I've had association with.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis Fitzgerald. Just a reflection, it came up in so many speakers, from Julie talking about the need for staff at JSS to have a vocational heart. Rod talked about prison staff being central to humane system, needing to model the behaviours that we would want others in the society to have. Private prison providers, and then Arthur talking about families from which people go to prison, and the community that offers friendship and community to people coming out. I mean, that's us, basically. So to some extent, people say this is about the community as a whole, but it's also about each of us in the room and the people that we seek to influence. Thanks.
Johnny King from the Brosnan Centre. Look, I've been at the Brosnan Centre for nearly 7 years now, and I've had an awful lot of good conversations in prisons with particularly young men around how they're going to go when they get out, what their plans might be. The first thing I'd say is I absolutely agree with what Leonard said. There's nobody sitting in prison that wants to be in prison. But there is actually a lot of honesty in a lot of the men that you'll talk to around where they're at in the community. And what I know is that they can see the truth in their own situations better than anyone else can describe it to them. I'll give you a couple of quotes from a couple of the guys that have just come to me this morning. One said to me, rehabilitation. He had a big problem with the word rehabilitation because he said, he's actually someone that wrote a glossary or a dictionary of prison words and was distributed around Barwon for several years and did the rounds, and he's a highly intelligent young fella. But he said he had a problem with the word rehabilitation because rehabilitation, he looked it up in the dictionary, and it wasn't in his dictionary, incidentally. And he said, rehabilitation returns me to what I was or restores me to what I was before I came into prison. Before I came into prison, I was a criminal. So why would I want to rehabilitate? That's going to mean I'm back to square one. So he had a huge problem, and he argued with the program facilitators in every prison he was in for several years about that one word. So he preferred the word reform. So he would just replace the word rehabilitation with reform in any conversation or any meeting or any group he had to participate in. That was one. Another one just said to me, as recently as 2 weeks ago, I sat down with him. He was 35 years old. He was in on his 7th or 8th adult stint. The last time he was out, he lasted less than 3 weeks. He more or less offended because he didn't feel comfortable in the community, and he felt he was going to do something really bad if he didn't go in. He went in, and he's now sitting in prison, and he said, look, I don't actually have any friends, I have associates. And what he most needed was friends, and you know, I suppose in a sense that's what he was really putting his hand up for with the support from our service, was for friendship, first and foremost. So another prisoner said to me, there are 3 things that you have that prison provides. Prison provides you with a home. You've lost your family, and your peers or your coes become your friends. So you've got your family through peers and associates, if you like. And then drugs are the other great friends. So you've got, as an agency or as a bunch of people sitting in this room whose aim is to try and turn people around from criminal offending and to get them having better lives than prison lives, I suppose our greatest challenge is how do we actually deliver them something or talk to them about something that, without them seeing straight through it, because that's what a lot of people will do when you sit and talk to them in prison. They'll actually see the worth of what you're putting up. So given that everything, you know, most people start to think about their next time in the community the first day they return to custody, they have an honesty with themselves that you need to try and maintain as anyone who's involved in their lives and trying to help them through. But you also need to understand that the second they get out the gate, everything can change again. And that's when you're really going to be needed. So our greatest challenge is how do we persuade those people that we're talking to in prisons, that we're offering help to, that we can provide more to them than the home that prison provides, the family that their peers in prison provide them, and the friendship that they're provided with by drugs or alcohol. So that, to me, it's more of a reflection than a question for anyone, but I just think that's what's coming up for me.
Thank you. Yes.
Jo Buckley. At the end of the day, I was really impressed by what Arthur had to say, and I've come to a conclusion that it's a humane and effective society if in fact it can keep its young people out of its justice system. The only way that that will happen is by redressing the disadvantage that the people who end up in it have, and they have it from birth. They have it from before birth. By and large, they experience incredible financial poverty, social poverty, and cultural poverty. They go to school, probably grade 6, year 7. By that stage, the discrimination that they've experienced at school by reason of not having the right socks, I don't find it funny, by reason of not having coloured pencils to complete an assignment, by reason of the humiliation they experience by not having lunch, that they've dropped out of school. If we don't redress those factors and allow children to attend school and to gain an education with dignity, we don't have any hope of achieving much more. When those things fail and we have got children who face the court, most of them end up on community orders, not in custody. And I often wonder whether magistrates know when they sign a court order saying 12 months probation and access counselling services and anger management. How incredibly difficult it is to put that into reality, that those services are very, very sparse, and that if you're outside of a capital city, then they're close to impossible. I wonder how many people here really know of the entrenched poverty that exists in our small country towns. So addressing the causes before our kids get into the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Up in the corner.
Thanks, Frank. I'm Julie Boffa. I'm the Policy Manager at Jesuit Social Services. I'm very new to that position, in fact, and it's been wonderful for me as somebody new to this sector to hear everything that you've all had to offer over the last few days. But part of the dilemma for me sitting here now is that, when I go back to my job on Monday, I'm going to continue the work that we do there to try to communicate much of what you've said and the thoughts and the feelings that we've heard over these 2 days, to the community, through the media, to government in our various submissions. And I'm really hoping for some clearer direction from you at this moment about what it is you'd like us to be saying to sum up what you really feel from your hearts from these couple of days. So, yeah, I'm really looking for that direction. The ideas that we've put up, we're trying to just catch some of the things we've heard you say, but how do we summarise that into a key message about a humane and effective justice system? Thanks.
Jonathan and then Joe.
I'll take up that challenge, but I just want to quickly first respond to the comment that nobody wants to be in prison. I actually have a client who I guess might be the exception that proves the rule. He was found unfit to be tried a number of years ago because he's deaf, and he doesn't speak. He doesn't have an adequate language that can be translated for the court, so he cannot be tried. He was required under a condition of a supervision order, which you get put on if you're not fit, in the Territory, to live in a house with a couple of carers in a remote location. And effectively the conditions for him were so intolerable, and having people talk about him who he couldn't understand, who were carers flown in from Victoria, and he's a man from Central Australia, traditional Aboriginal man from Central Australia. Those conditions became so unbearable he would continually be frustrated and aggressive and quite threatening, effectively to draw attention to his plight because he couldn't communicate. And ultimately his clear instructions were that he wanted to go to prison because he's got family there and he's now much happier. And the reason I tell that story is because I think it's one of the themes of the symposium, and that is that prison is a symptom of societal failure. I think that's a really classic example. But to take up the question or the challenge that Frank also invited to answer the question of what does a humane and effective justice system look like, I guess my reflections on that, and I hope they're not too cute, is first that an effective justice system I think is a humane one, and I don't think there's a dichotomy between what is effective and what is humane. I think you can't have one without the other. And the other theme that I guess I feel has come out of a lot of what people have said is that a humane and effective justice system must meet the needs of victims and offenders and society. And to achieve this, we have to find common ground, and we can't have a system that is effective unless all of those groups are satisfied with it. And if we leave one of those groups out, we leave one behind, then I think we see the reactions of our politicians, we see the reactions of groups in the community who will clamour for heavier sentences and so on, which I think defeats the purpose of trying to find an effective system.
Joe.
Just one area that I don't think has been touched on, but it's the whole area and need, and it's a difficult area, but for law reform as well, because it seems that there are so many people who, through addictions, through mental illness, are really thrown into dealing with some very dark, nasty people, and who in fact have contact with the criminal world and ultimately have contact into the criminal justice system. And it's because the substances that they happen to be addicted to are illegal. So I think that's as if the addiction isn't sort of sad and tragic enough to be thrown deep into a very dark world of criminal behaviour, and the criminal justice system exacerbates any of those problems. In terms of where to go and package all of this up, I think that anything that can be coherent and be another voice against the sort of the seeming flow and trend of lock them up for longer and more often. I think anything will be of value there.
This has been an excellent forum of conversation, but everyone here goes back to their own daily life, whatever that may be. And it's very easy in a sense, or relatively, to talk about something out there. And I'm reflecting here on the kind of praxis whereby you not only reflect on the actions you are taking, or we are taking, I am taking, but on the reflection on those actions. So I just wonder if a practical, manageable, but very difficult strategy may be to look at your family or your living circumstances and your workplace and reflect on how just I am in my daily actions, and reflect on what kind of things one needs to do to try and address that. Because I'm pretty sure that in almost everyone's life there are challenges from family, workplace, and even maybe the clients you work with. And I'm just wondering if that is the most practical thing as a starting point, because I really don't know how you crack what we're trying to do today. There are plenty of ideas and suggestions, but that's just my thought anyway. I'll try and do it myself. I need to.
And time for one more. Yes.
Yeah,
last word.
I just can't help but have to say something about a lot's been spoken about, and I think when we talk about them, they, those, we're missing the point. That we're talking about us as a society. I mean, it's been touched on in families, in organisations, in groups, whether it be prisons, and I mean, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that we don't need prisons. But what we do when we put people in there is another story. And to talk about them like there's some, I don't know what other thing. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But honestly, it's like the labels that we attach to people are the disability. That is the obstacle. I think that them, they, those. It's just. I mean, it just sickens me in the stomach. Yeah, I will get on with my life. My life is about watching my back every day. I can't walk down the street and get pulled over by the police because I know what's going to come up on their screen. They don't give a rat's ass whether I'm clean and sober and been out of prison for 10 years. They don't care 1 minute about that. I was given an award for outstanding services to the community. What does that mean to anyone? To me, it means a lot. I used to get locked up for my services to the community. I'm like Arthur. I don't do it for the money. If I did it for the money, I should be running organisations and the prison system, privatising private. I mean, do they get paid to keep people in jail? Do they? So what's their aim? To keep them in there or to release them? What's to go there? I don't understand a lot of this stuff. Are we wanting prisoners rehabilitated if there's such a thing? Is there a therapeutic model in the prison system? I mean, it's all right to go and run programs in there, but who's going to be with them on their way out to implement them things that they learn in there? Because it's easy to get a couple of certificates graduating the course of drug and alcohol and still be using while you're in there. It's insane. I think the fish smells from their head down, and we're part of the fish.
So could I draw us back to just two of the comments Frank Vincent made in his presentation to us last night. He said, "We've never had what I would regard as an adequately humane and effective system, although it could reasonably be expected to be an integral feature of the kind of modern, affluent society committed to human rights and values to which we aspire and that we often claim to be. So it requires some imagination to envisage how it would appear and function in practice." And that's the challenge for us from here. He concluded, for many reasons, that the achievement of such a humane and effective system will remain an aspiration for the foreseeable future. However, it's important that it should be our objective, as it is an integral feature of a genuinely decent and properly functioning society. We might conclude reflecting on the what I now call the Brosnan trifecta, not speaking of them but of us together. What do we want? A roof over our head, a paycheck in our pocket, and a mate at hand. So we hope that in the days ahead we can put together some documentation from the splendid proceedings we've had which can take us forward. It remains only for me, on your behalf, to express some votes of thanks institutionally to the Public Policy Institute of Australian Catholic University and Scott Prasser, who's with us, and to Julie Edwards as the CEO of Jesuit Social Services. Julie, as ever, we're so grateful for your vision, your energy, your passion to see this implemented. And we particularly want to thank the communications team at Jesuit Social Services, Julie, Erin, Darcy and Bonnie. Kath Neville, who's done an absolutely fabulous job in coordinating and briefing speakers. And to the speakers and the panel members, I think you'll agree it's been an absolutely stellar cast. I had a phone call from Mark Raper just the other day, was the Jesuit provincial, he's now based in the Philippines. He said, that lineup, it almost looks like a Vatican meeting. You've got so many experts. Well, I hope it's been a little more grounded than a Vatican meeting, and perhaps with some degree of the same divine inspiration. So thank you very much to the speakers, to the panellists, and to you, the members of the public who have come and participated so fully and so generously. It truly has been a conversation, it has been a dialogue, and it hasn't just been us talking at them or them talking at us. So thank you very much indeed, and we hope that you'll stay with us for the next 3/4 of an hour, have a drink, reflect a little more, and do give us those dot points, drop them in the cardboard box, and don't forget to pick up your evaluation form, either here in paper or on the internet, and please get the reflections back to us so that our brand new spanking policy officer, Ms. Boffa, will be able to bring this to a sharp and pointy end with a real cogency which reflects the days that we've had. Thank you.
And before we close and go out to refreshments, I know that you'll want to join me in thanking Frank Brennan. Frank's done a fantastic job. I've thought the way that you have managed to move us with a firm but sensitive hand to get to this point has been excellent. I really appreciated your comments as well along the way. We're very fortunate, Jesuit Social Services, to have Frank's involvement with us. I always marvel at the way he is able to synthesise information from such a range of sources and bring it to coherent and but put simply enough for it to be really able to be digested. So thank you very much, Frank. Please join me in thanking Frank.
So please, come and have a drink, and yes, black caviar did win.